All right, you guys, we have a new type of episode, actually, because there's more than one of us. It's not a coaches roundtable, but we have two brand new coaches here at Street Parking. And I thought that what we needed to do was sit down and get to know them a little bit. I want you guys to know why they're here with us and who they are, and just have a little bit of fun with it as well. Both of the new coaches are people that I've known for a really long time, actually. And I'm super excited to introduce both of them to you. And the very first one that we're talking to today is Miss Chelsie Guardado. And yes, she is Chris's wife, who's made all the t-shirts that you guys have spent way too much money on and all of that stuff. But there's so much more to Chelsie than that. And honestly, I can't be more excited to have somebody on our team. It's somebody that I've been like patiently waiting for her to be ready to be on our team, and somebody that I've known for, I guess, since like 2015?
Yeah, around that time.
Yeah, so like 7 years. Mm-hmm. Chelsie's been in the fitness industry for 8 years. She's a highly decorated former CrossFit competitor. She's a mom, and we're going to learn a few other things about her too. So super pumped to talk to Chelsie. And before we get into don't worry, I'm not going to tell you or ask you your whole life story or anything like that. I'm going to ask you just a few fun random questions. Okay. What did you have for breakfast today?
Oatmeal.
Just oatmeal?
Oatmeal with egg whites and a scoop of protein, raspberries, peanut butter.
Okay. So that's like almost the exact Miranda Molly breakfast that we post all the time, where it's like the oatmeal's, egg whites. Mm-hmm. Do you mix it all together?
I mix it all together. I cook the water and the oatmeal together, half and half. And then I add all the other things after with almond extract.
Oh my gosh.
It makes it a little fancy, but it's just a little dab and it's delicious.
One thing that I know about Chelsie, she's definitely a better cook than I am, but that's not hard to do. I will find something that works and ride it to my grave and never change anything or add a little spice of flavor or anything like that. So I've had a few treats and meals from Chelsie, and she's a much better cook and much more creative and knows things like to add almond extract to something, just to add a little coziness to it. So that's cool. Okay. What were you listening to in your car while you were driving over here today?
Country music.
Country music. Is that like a standard?
No, it's not, but that's just my easy listening music. I just put on mostly 90s country is my go-to.
Same.
Yeah. I like some of the newer stuff, but definitely.
You just went to a Garth Brooks concert.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And Chris didn't know who that was.
He didn't know who it was.
And we were like, how are you alive right now?
One song. But if you've ever been to a Garth Brooks concert, it's like a show.
Yeah. So he's old though.
Yeah. He's older, and he was definitely sweating the whole time and breathing really hard, but he still had a great show. And then after we left, Chris had so much more respect.
Oh, it's so good.
It was awesome.
It's so good. Okay. He's one of my favorites for sure. What was the last workout that you did?
Yesterday I did a workout with a friend.
Do you remember what it was?
Yes.
What was it?
It was a partner workout. You did 30 power cleans. 30 power cleans, 30 bar facing burpees, and then they do that.
Oh, nice.
Then you do a combined 20 power cleans, 20 burpees.
Okay.
It was with a friend. We did it together.
Nice. I love partner workouts. So not only are you Chris's wife, but you're Kaylee's sister.
Yes.
So my question is, you now work for Street Parking. Mm-hmm. Which one of them is going to be harder to work with, and why?
Oh God. Probably Chris.
Why?
I don't know, because Kaylee and I operate somewhat the same.
Yes.
We think the same. We are about efficiency the same way, which could be bad. I understand, but probably Chris. I don't know. We just butt heads a little bit more. Sometimes I'm you need to be more organized and always think things through.
She's going to say the same thing to me, because I think me and Chris are very similar.
Yeah. So probably Chris.
Okay. I'm sure he won't ever hear that. All right. So let's get into a little bit of your history then. This might explain the country music. You grew up on a farm. 2 farms or just 1 farm?
2 farms. Yeah.
One of them is here in Washington and the other one was in Idaho, right?
Oregon.
So Oregon and Idaho?
Idaho, yeah.
Okay. So what did you you grew up on the farm, and I've heard a lot from Kaylee about it, like how you guys went to a really small school and you did all this farm work and stuff. And we've seen her do some stuff at Fitness Freedom. What did you actually do? Like what is growing up on a farm for you? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, I think up until you were about 12, it was all fun and games. Like you just played outside, you did all like the normal kid stuff. And then when you turned 12, it was like responsibilities. So, yeah, I mean, you worked all summer. Like unlike most kids, like we didn't really play sports.
Like what did you do? Like what did work consist of? Like when you're 14, what are you doing all day?
Driving truck, dumping trucks, driving combine, driving tractors. Like it was like whatever dad wanted you to do that day. Moving cows, fixing fence, spraying weeds, like the whole thing, like literally anything you could think of. And
you guys still have one or both of the farms in your family?
Both of the farms, like they're both still in the family. My brothers have kind of taken them over now.
You didn't want to take over the farm?
I don't know if it was an option.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
How would you say, so now obviously you're in fitness and you're a coach. What, if anything, from that like upbringing has made you the fitness person or the coach that you are today? Like, what did you take from that?
I think the thing there for me was ownership. So like at a really young age, I learned responsibility, how to work hard, and just like owning yourself. Like you had to carry that because I grew up in a big family, and it was like you had these responsibilities and it was just like you, right? So I think that was a big part of it. And also just like kind of suck it up and get it done was definitely the mentality in my family a lot of times, and more so for some of us than others for sure. But I think that was,
I mean, cause if it's cold, if it's raining, if it's whatever, like you can't just be like, oh, I don't feel like,
or like Dad,
doing my job today.
Like doing this. It's like, that's not an option.
Were your parents really like hard-headed about it? Like, or would they, if it was like a really crappy weather situation or you were sick or something, would they be like, fine, whatever, I'll go do your jobs for you?
I think my dad was definitely a little bit more hard-headed, but my mom would like be like the middle person where it's like, okay, Roger, I think this is too much. We need to tone it down a little bit.
I think that's a similar story for a lot of moms and dads. Maybe not in your family though. Maybe not with you and Chris.
Yeah.
Chris might be the softer one.
Yeah.
Who was better at farm work, you or Kaylee?
Kaylee was definitely better at things like driving truck and some of those jobs.
She loves it still.
I will explain, and all of my siblings will defend me on this. I was the sibling that took all the crappy jobs because no one else wanted to do it. So Chelsie did it because I didn't complain. And Kaylee kind of weaseled her way out of some of those things. So, that was, but so yeah, I guess if it was like down to doing the dirty work, it was definitely me. Where Kaylee got some of like the more, she's going to kill me for saying that. She got some of the more privileged jobs, like air conditioning.
I see. I'm like looking at her desk out there.
That was definitely it.
But I can see like, I mean, I didn't have a childhood anywhere, anything like that at all, but I can see how like, you just develop this ability to be like, well, this is uncomfortable. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I don't feel like doing this. And you just go do it. And how can that not transfer into everything that you do, even if it's not farm work, for the rest of your life? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Totally. And you have become an amazing athlete and a really amazing coach. And I think some of that, or a lot of it, probably has to come from that. Yeah. And I think you and Kaylee are similar in the way that you work too, probably because of that, because you guys are very direct and very like hardworking and everything. So I think it's just awesome. So we've known each other for 7 years ish. I moved to Southern California and started working for Progenics, which is where Chris worked. And we had an office in the back of the gym where you trained and where you were a coach. Mm-hmm. And you and Chris were together. Actually, I moved like 2 days before your wedding, and I went to your wedding, and that was when I first moved down there. So I probably had met you even before I moved then, obviously, if I was at your wedding. So we've known each other for like 7-8 years. And something that, not everybody, unless they've like researched you or used to really watch competitive CrossFit closely, that people wouldn't know just right off the bat, is that you were amazing, still are, but like when you were competing, you were incredible, like really decorated athlete. You were on a team for how many years?
I went back and forth between team and individual, but I competed for a total of like, I think 7 or 8 years.
Yeah. And then toward the end of your competitive career, or at least, I don't know, maybe you'll make a comeback, but like toward that phase, you competed as an individual and were like super close to qualifying.
Yeah.
And so my question is, I know you had this like nickname of, or at least it was like something that Chris would call you, and you had the shirt of being the dark horse.
Yeah.
Like, what was that all about?
I think, you know, when I competed, I was definitely like unassummed. Like, I think people would look at me and think, she's like I wasn't the most lean athlete, and I was very small, and I generally wore clothes like t-shirts and stuff. So I think for the most part, like I was very unassuming, which part of that I liked, because I liked that people wouldn't, or maybe thought I was going to be bad at something and I wasn't. So I think that's kind of where that dark horse came from.
Yeah. I think, you weren't as like out there on social media and like trying to like blast all these like sponsors and all of this stuff too. So I think, I mean, I watched you compete, and we were in the same region. I don't think we were ever in the same division, because when you were doing individual is when I was doing actually, I think one time.
2015, I think.
Yeah, you were on the team. That's right.
I remember.
That's right. But when you were doing individual, I can see that, because especially where you were competing, there was a lot of really big, like popular names.
Yeah.
And you would just come in and you were just almost like, people were like, wait a minute, like what's going on here?
Yeah.
And only people that knew you and had known you from the team would really know, like, oh no, this chick's really legit. But you did awesome. So the last couple years, I think the very last time you competed was in China.
Yeah, so random.
at the regional, they weren't sanctional or whatever.
Yeah.
And do you have a most memorable competition moment that like is something that you think about a lot?
Well, I don't think about it a lot anymore, but the most memorable moment, honestly, was probably 2017. One of the events honestly, that year, I was probably the most prepared. And you know how any season you go through, you ask yourself, like, be honest with yourself. Did you do everything you could to be as fit as you could for this weekend? And that was the one year that I could check all of the boxes, right? And I was definitely the most prepared going into that weekend. So I don't know if there was definitely an event that weekend that I loved and that I was like, yes, I deserve this, you know? But yeah, that was probably the most memorable like highlight of my time.
Isn't that interesting? Because I feel the same way too, where it's like, I feel satisfied with what I did when I was, and maybe you feel the same way. I feel satisfied with what I did when I was competing, even though like, there were definitely goals that I had that I never achieved. Like I'm like qualifying as an individual, like I became very close several times. And then obviously our team winning and then I got injured or whatever. But under the circumstances that I was in, I do believe that like I found almost the limit of my potential with the cards that I had. Like, so yeah, I could have traveled less for CrossFit and done better. Probably if I would have been an athlete growing up, I could have been a better CrossFit, but like with the cards that I was dealt and the opportunity that I had, I feel like I almost hit the potential that I had in that window. Yeah. And what else can you ask for? Like you can't control how good everybody else is, but like I don't have the regret of should have, would have, could have. I didn't work as hard as I could have. I didn't eat as good as I could have and stuff like that.
Yeah, because there's definitely years where at the end, whatever, when you're going into that weekend, you're like, did I? Mm-hmm. No. There's some areas where you had to be like totally
you were
honest.
Avoiding weaknesses or avoiding being uncomfortable or whatever in your training.
Like maybe your nutrition, you weren't giving it everything you could.
Yeah.
It's like a big part of it.
Yeah.
You know, like I agree.
How would you say that your experience competing has made you a better coach?
I think all of that experience, like definitely it helps me because I understand that the small things add up, right? And I think that can be applied to anybody. So like when you're getting into fitness or whatever, it's like, it takes a long time to establish like a lot of habits and like consistency. So just understanding that really just starting wherever you're at and just the little things over time build up, and obviously not going all in and just like taking that approach, super helpful. Because when you are competing, you kind of reach a point where you don't stall out, but you have to start really doing the little things, and you see how those little things start to add up and get, to where you want to be. I think that's a big one.
I remember watching you. So you mentioned earlier, you were one of the smaller people competing. And I remember just watching you when you would train at Costa Mesa, because I was there all day long working, and you were small. So your pain point was, I need to get stronger. And you were just lifting, constantly lifting. And, I mean, like you're saying, like, some of that stuff gets really tedious and boring. And like, it would be so much more fun to just do burpee box jump overs. And the stuff you're good at is more fun always.
And you do that for an entire off season, or maybe 2, and maybe you get 5 pounds added to a squat, or maybe you don't.
Yeah.
Maybe it happens 2 years later.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
and so everybody has those like strengths and weaknesses. And I feel like it's so much more fun to do the stuff that you're good at and that you enjoy. And you are always just so diligent. Again, I like you, like your farm background, like, this is what I have to do. If I want X, then I have to do this. Yeah. So, actually kind of during, I think, how long did you work for Spieler? So before you were here, you've been with the Spiel program. It was Icon Athlete, and then the Spiel program, where you were doing programming and lesson plans and stuff like that for affiliates. When did you start with him?
So I started working at his gym in 2018. And then for his Spiel programming, like helping with gyms, in 2019.
And you were a coach at Costa Mesa. I should have said that before you moved there. And then you guys moved to Park City and you started working for Spiel. Okay, cool. So 2019, 18, 19 is when you started doing the affiliate stuff. So like 4 years.
Yeah.
What are the challenges of doing that, of like writing programming and coming up with lessons plans for gyms? So like, obviously we do it here, and we have to keep in mind that it's like 35,000 random people with random equipment and random fitness levels. What are the challenges when trying to do that for however many gyms you were doing it for?
Yeah. I think it's like, you're talking as like the coach, you're thinking of the coach to help the athlete, right? So like, you're giving them tools to better their class or their craft, essentially. So that was like one of the challenges, and like providing them value there and helping them like run an efficient class, you know, and like a fun class. So I think that was like, I mean, that was a challenge, but also like just something I enjoyed doing, and kind of something that I felt like I was good at. Efficiency again. So like just making everything flow really well in your class. Like when you're warming up, it's like people aren't running around getting a bunch of different stuff. It's like everything is just like this. It's like art, you know, like it just happens really smoothly. And like then giving that to the coach so that they don't have to necessarily think as much, or maybe they're newer and like they're still developing as a coach. And then also just making it so that they had tools to like teach and things to like think about. Cause sometimes that's hard when you're new and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, you know? So
you're super educated and you're super, methodical. And I think one of the things that I'm just like coming up with this, maybe it's out of left field and it's not true at all. But one of the things that I've always wondered about you is if you, until more recently, because maybe until you became a mom, if it was like training needs to be more structured. Like your belief was that it needs to be more structured. There needs to be more of a plan. It can't just be this like random, you know, I'll do this workout today and tomorrow I'll grab a Sogo and this and that. And so we'll talk about maybe if that belief has changed. But do you think that a few years ago that was more of like your belief system? Because I've always felt like Chelsie thinks that we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants over here. And of course, I know that you have always respected like our programming and the workouts and stuff like that. I'm not saying that, but like how members are just doing their own thing at home and they're not necessarily even doing the workouts in the right order or anything like that. Like, was your belief a few years ago that like it needs to have more structure, it needs to build off of each other more?
Yeah. I mean, you know, the original gym that I came from, it was like very much like that. And I don't know that I ever necessarily thought that to like the T, right? I always felt like something is better than nothing. I've always felt that way, but definitely like more structure, you know, and like, but I think that's one of the things I learned working for Chris, and like under him was like kind of coming around to that. And it was a good like middle for me because he's like old school, you know, but yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. But I think that's one of the things I learned from him was just that it doesn't need to be like that all the time. you know, and that's really it only really needs to be like that if you have very specific goals.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. I think we both believe there's a time and a place for it. Like if you've already reached a certain level of fitness and you have goals for something specific, like you trying to get stronger to compete, then of course, like you've got to have some sort of a plan and like a trajectory. But like, you know, because you've worked in multiple gyms, most people like when they even show up is random. Like you couldn't create something structured for them unless they're going to show up on the exact same days, you know, all the time for months and months on end. And most people's schedule and life just doesn't work like that. So,
yeah. I think because I was in a gym like that and then I was in Chris's gym, I was able to really see like, yeah, it doesn't work like that. Like you put your gym through this like squat program, but then they miss half the day. They don't want to go. And it's like, who cares then? Just give them workouts that work.
Right.
You know? So
how was your transition? I know Julian and Molly and myself all talk about like having to like almost rehab from this like competition mindset. And how was that for you? Was it challenging for you to just work out to be healthy and not have specific competitive goals anymore?
Yeah, it was extremely hard. And sometimes it like still kind of is hard.
For sure. I saw you and Julian the other day.
Yeah. Like, and I think some of it for me was like, I was feeling a little burnt out towards the end. Like, and not physically, more like mentally. Like I just didn't have it anymore. I was like, I was really battling this, like, do I want to keep going or am I done? I didn't reach my goal. It's like this whole battle, right? But then I was like, I don't want it. I had to be honest with myself. Like I'm not working like I want it.
Right.
And there had been times that I had, so I knew the difference. And I think once I it was hard because I was feeling burnt out and it was like going into the gym and you're like, well, I'm not trying to do this anymore. So like, I mean, obviously I'm working out for my health, but that is a little challenging to like find that balance.
Do you ever, Julian and I talk about this a lot. Do you ever think to yourself, like in the middle of the workout, you're by yourself, you guys have like a cool little like detached garage situation and you're just like going for it and you're alone, or maybe Mason, your son is in there with you and you're like, why am I doing this to myself? Like, why am I going so hard right now? Does that happen to you?
Yeah.
Because Julian and I talk about that all the time.
When I worked out with Julian, I'm like, what is happening? I haven't cycled a barbell like this in so long.
It's so funny. You're like, why do I care if he beats me right now? Like, what is happening? Yeah. And he totally bullied you into going heavier than you wanted to go to.
Yeah.
So you're a mom now. How old is Mason? He's like a year?
Yeah, about 19 months.
Okay. And how is that transition for you? Like physically, mentally, when it comes to like why you work out or how challenging or not challenging getting proper meals and fitness and all of that?
Yeah. I think it definitely was like challenging. You know, I moved, you know, right before I had him. So it was like a lot of life change. And I just had to like, it was definitely hard to like find a routine. I was working out alone, which I wasn't used to. I mean, now I kind of like that, to be honest. But that was like hard. There was just a lot of challenges, but now more than ever, I've had to sort of adapt to just like doing something and just like, that's okay. And like, this is my season of life. And like, I just had a conversation with Chris about it this week because it is still hard when you have to work out with your kids. Like it's the most favorite thing to do. But it's like, hey, there's 2 or 3 workouts a week that I have my kid with me and I don't really work out that hard. But that's okay. You know, I have 2 other days and I'm grateful to even have that because some people don't even have that. So there's 2 other days where I can go hard then. And that's my time to like really just zone out and like focus on me. But you know, it's just where I'm at in life and doesn't mean that I'm not going to ever have that again. It's really not that big of a deal when you think about it like that, you know? So I've really had to just adapt that mindset of just like, it's just, I'm doing something, which is better than nothing. And
you're still really fit though. Yeah. I told Julian, the person that's going to suffer the most from us hiring you is him, because he won't really compete against me. And honestly, I mean, I'm 3 babies deep where you're 1. Maybe when you're 3, you'll have lost as much fitness as I have. But like, we've never really been super competitive with each other. But when you show up, that switch for him flips. Like he knows what level you were at. And he does the same thing with Molly. Yeah. Like he knows the level that you were at and you guys were kind of at it at the same time. And so it's like, and he'll go much harder when you're there too.
Yeah. And I would say now I honestly don't go hard that much. But when I do, like, I still have that like ability to go hard, you know, like I know how to like take it there. But it doesn't happen very often.
I know we were planning on doing this like workout with like all the female coaches next week. And I'm just like, I am not fit enough for this. I can't deal with Molly and Chelsie and Alex all at the same time. Like I'm going to die or I'm just going to look really slow. I asked you guys the other day about what your belief in fitness is. And I was like super dramatic about it. I asked all the coaches and a few other people, like, if you were going to die tomorrow, what would your message to the world about fitness be? And I was just curious, and you guys couldn't see each other's responses. You didn't even know that I asked other people. Your first version was a little bit longer, but then I asked you to make it shorter, and I'm just going to read it and see if you have anything to add or say about why you said this. Okay. So you emailed me, don't let your excuses own you. Take ownership of your fitness. It's never going to be pretty or easy, but over time you will become more comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that will make you resilient. Yeah. So, and the reason that I told you guys like what would be your deathbed message as opposed to just what's your message is because like, I don't know about you, but if I didn't have to like, it would be a stronger message because it's like, this is the last thing I ever get to say. And I've said so much, but here's like the main thing. But then also like, if I didn't have to worry about hurting people's feelings or like how people were going to take it, like how would I say this? So I like, don't let your excuses own you. People get pretty defensive when you use the word excuses. Like what do you see? You've coached a lot of people. Like, what do you see what holds them back most often, do you think?
Well, I think excuses, is definitely what I think, how do I word this? Is like people and sometimes I think they don't even realize that they're using an excuse.
It's a reason to them. It's a reason, not an excuse. And it's a reason that they don't think that there's like a way to overcome it.
Right. And I think they struggle to be completely honest with themselves, you know, like asking themselves like hard questions and answering it honestly. Like kind of what we were talking about earlier is like, were you doing everything you could, or are you doing everything you can? Right. And I think that's a big thing. I think people struggle to do that, you know, check in that way with themselves.
And I think like, you know, like you have found where you came from this idea that everything needs to be structured and perfect and laid out to where you're at now, where like 3 days a week you're working out with your kid and it's not even close to what your training used to look like at Costa Mesa when you were training to compete. But you've learned through this whole like process of just life and transitions and stuff that like, hey, I'm still actually pretty fit. Yeah. And like, this is, for me, it was like, this is way more effective than actually I thought it was going to be even going into it. When we created street parking, like I didn't think necessarily that I would be able to stay as fit as I am through 3 pregnancies and with the little that I do work out compared to what I was used to. Yeah. Do you think that in general, people just don't put enough value on like the more than nothing concept? Like they are maybe still in that mindset of like, it has to be this like structured thing. And if not, it's like pointless.
Yeah, I do. Cause I feel the same way. Like I've still been able to maintain a good amount of fitness. I mean, I'm sure there's things that I just don't do anymore or that I probably can't do at the capacity, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's not necessarily what I need for what my goals are now. Right. So yeah, I do think that's it's huge.
What are you most excited about, like, to add to the street parking coaches team? I know I'm kind of like putting you on the spot. I did not tell you I was going to ask you that one.
I don't know, like variety, like different. I'm definitely like much more like, well, not structured, but definitely like black and white, which not that everyone isn't. I think everyone is. I don't know.
I think it's hard to find coaches that are as organized and like, and stuff as you though. Like, cause in general, they became coaches because they have, they're more in the gym and they're less structured and things like that. So I think adding you to the team as somebody who can help bring that to us, I think is going to be huge. And you also, I didn't mention this, but you're really educated when it comes to nutrition and all of that stuff. And we have a great nutrition team, but anytime that we add somebody who can maybe just word something that we've said for the last few years a different way, or help us to deliver the message in a different way, I think can reach people for sure.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think there's like, I'm excited to just offer like variety and like something different. I think that's the value in having different coaches is like, they're all different in their own way. And what everyone's going to relate with them on a different level. You know what I mean? So
yeah, we got to have somebody for the farm people.
Yeah.
And so here she is.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, you guys. So this is Coach Chelsie. We're super pumped to have her. You'll be seeing her more, and go check her out on Instagram and follow her, because she doesn't love social media the most. All right. But she's going to be posting, talking to you guys and giving you tips and just showing her real life workouts and her food and stuff like that. So make sure you go follow her and hit her up with questions in her comments and stuff like that. And we're super pumped. I had to wait almost 6 years to get you to finally come work for us, but I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you.